The radio goes quiet at 6:47 a.m. Not the comfortable quiet of a slow Tuesday morning in Harlow Creek. Not the quiet of nothing happening. The specific quiet of a channel that was producing traffic 30 seconds ago and is now producing nothing. The silence that every law enforcement officer learns to recognize in their first year on the job and spends the rest of their career hoping not to hear in certain contexts. You have been Sheriff of Harlow Creek for 19 years. You recognize the context. The last transmission was from Deputy Hank Briggs. Your deputy. Your only deputy. 11 years on the job, steady as county roads, the kind of officer who files his incident reports in alphabetical order, and has never once been late for a shift in 11 years of shifts. Hank was responding to a call on Route 9. 3 vehicles stopped, drivers unresponsive, reported by a passing trucker who did not stop long enough to give his name or plate number. That was 14 minutes ago. The last thing Hank said on the radio was, "Sheriff, something is wrong with these people." And then the channel went quiet. You are sitting in your cruiser outside Patty's Diner on Main Street. You have a cup of coffee that is still hot. Through the diner window, you can see Patty herself refilling the cup of Earl Hutchins, who has eaten breakfast at that counter every weekday morning for 31 years. The American flag above the post office across the street is catching the early morning breeze. The elementary school 2 blocks north will start filling up in about 40 minutes. Harlow Creek, population 2,400. Your town. You try Hank again, nothing. Route 9 is 4 miles east of town. You cover it in 3.5 minutes with the lights on, but the siren off because Harlow Creek is just waking up and there is no reason to start the day with sirens if you can help it. 19 years of being the only law in a town of 2,400 teaches you that perception matters as much as reality. If people see the sheriff's cruiser flying down Main Street at 7 in the morning with the siren going, they start asking questions you may not have answers to yet. You have Hank's last reported position, you find it. 3 vehicles on the shoulder of Route 9, a minivan, a pickup, and a sedan, stopped at irregular intervals like they pulled over without coordination, without warning, without finishing whatever they were doing when they stopped. The minivan still has its left turn signal blinking. Nobody turns on a turn signal and then stops on the shoulder of Route 9 unless something happened between the intention and the execution. Hank's cruiser is parked behind the sedan. Driver's door open, engine running, no Hank. You run the plates while you approach. All 3 vehicles registered to addresses in Harlow Creek. People you probably know. In a town of 2,400, you know most of the vehicles on site and most of the drivers by name, and this is both the best and worst part of the job depending on the day. The sedan belongs to Marge Kowalski, 63 years old, teaches 4th grade at the elementary school that will start filling up in 40 minutes. The pickup belongs to Pete Garfield, 28, works the early shift at the grain elevator. The minivan belongs to a family named Driscoll, new to town, 2 kids. The turn signal is still blinking. You call out. The field beside Route 9 answers. You find them in the ditch. All 3 drivers, moving in a way that takes you approximately 4 seconds to process and file under a category your 19 years of law enforcement experience does not have a name for. Moving in the way that Hank described, wrong. Wrong in the joints. Wrong in the relationship between intention and motion. Moving in the specific way of something that is operating its body from a significant distance. Marge Kowalski, Pete Garfield. One of the Driscoll parents, you cannot tell which one from here. And behind them, at the far edge of the ditch where the field grass begins, moving in the same wrong way. Deputy Hank Briggs, still in uniform, still wearing his hat. There is a specific kind of decision that experienced law enforcement officers make in the field. Not a thought, not a deliberate process, but a rapid, unconscious sorting of information into categories, assigning each piece a weight, arriving at a course of action through a mechanism that feels less like thinking and more like remembering something you already knew. You make that decision in approximately 2 seconds. The decision is this. Whatever is happening on Route 9 is already happening in Harlow Creek. 3 drivers pulled over at the same time on the same road means it did not start with these 3 drivers. It started somewhere else. and these three were already in their cars heading somewhere when it reached them, which means it reached the town they were leaving before it reached them. You do not look at Hank again. You get back in the cruiser. On the drive back, you try every frequency: county dispatch, state patrol, the emergency management office in the county seat, NOAA weather radio. Because sometimes when the conventional channels go down, the weather radio stays up and someone who knows what they are doing will use it. County dispatch comes back once, a voice you recognize as Sandra Yee, 22 years on the board, saying something in a professional tone that professional tone cannot fully contain, the words breaking through the training at the edges. She says, "All units be advised, we are receiving reports of..." And then the channel produces a sound that is not static and not signal, and not anything Sandra Yee is generating deliberately. And then the channel is quiet. You do not try again. Main Street at 7:11 a.m. looks like the beginning of a normal Tuesday. Patty's Diner still open, the breakfast crowd visible through the window. Carl Weaver sweeping the sidewalk in front of his hardware store the way he has every morning for 20 years. Kids starting to appear on the sidewalks heading toward the elementary school 2 blocks north. Normal, for approximately 4 more minutes. You make 3 decisions in the next 90 seconds, and they are the 3 most important decisions you will make today. The first decision is the school. You pull up in front of Harlow Creek Elementary at 7:13 a.m. Principal Janet Marsh is unlocking the front doors. You know Janet. You went to school with Janet. Her daughter plays on the same soccer team as your niece. You tell her, lock the doors and do not let anyone in or out until you hear from me directly. Not from the radio, not from another officer, from me, in person, or on your personal cell phone. My number, which you already have. Janet Marsh has known you for 35 years. She reads your face. She does not ask questions. She locks the doors. The second decision is the diner. You go back to Patty's. The breakfast crowd, 11 people including Patty herself and Earl Hutchins and a table of highway workers you do not recognize. You tell them what you tell Janet Marsh in the same flat professional voice that 19 years of delivering bad news has built into you. There is a situation developing. Stay inside. Lock the door behind me. Do not open it for anyone you do not personally know. I will be back. Patty asks, what kind of situation? You tell her the kind you lock the door for. She locks the door. The third decision is the one that costs you the most time and saves the most lives, and you will not know. It did either of those things for several hours. There is a hardware store. Carl Weaver has been sweeping that sidewalk when you drive past his hardware store on your way back to the school. Carl is 71 years old and has lived alone since his wife passed 3 years ago and does not have family in the county and will not know to lock his door unless someone tells him to lock his door. You stop. You tell Carl. Carl goes inside. By 7:31 a.m., you understand the scope of it. It is not contained to Route 9. It was never contained to Route 9. The 3 vehicles on Route 9 were people who were already leaving town when it reached them, which means the correct model is not outbreak but arrival, something that came into Harlow Creek from multiple directions simultaneously and is now present throughout the town at varying density. You drive the grid, Maple, Oak, Birch, Elm, the numbered streets east of Main, the county road that runs north to the grain elevator, the residential blocks south of the park where the newer houses are, where the Driscoll family who bought the Hendersons' old place lived. You stop counting at 47. The town is not gone. That is the important thing to hold on to. The town is not gone. There are lights on in houses. There are people visible through windows who are not moving in the wrong way. There is a woman on the second floor of the Benson building on Main Street who sees your cruiser and opens her window and shouts down, "What is happening?" You shout back, "Stay inside. Stay away from the windows. I am working on it." She closes the window. You are working on it. The problem with being the only law enforcement officer in a town of 2,400 is that you are one person, one cruiser, one radio that is currently not reaching anyone outside the town limits, one badge and one gun and 19 years of experience managing DUIs and domestic disputes and the occasional meth situation out on the county roads. You were not trained for this. Nobody was trained for this. You do it anyway. At 9:14 a.m., Hank Briggs finds you. You are on Birch Street, helping the Kowalski family, not Marge. Marge is on Route 9, but her husband Dennis and her son Tyler, who are alive and terrified and barricaded in their kitchen, move toward the community center on Oak Street, which you have decided is the best consolidation point because it is a single-story concrete building with one main entrance and a loading dock entrance and no ground floor windows. Hank comes around the corner of Birch and 3rd, still in uniform, still wearing his hat. Tyler Kowalski is 17 years old. He sees Hank and says, "Is that your deputy?" You tell him, "Keep moving toward the community center. Take your dad. Do not stop." Tyler Kowalski is a smart kid. He reads your face the way Janet Marsh read your face. He takes his dad. He keeps moving. You have known Hank Briggs for 11 years. You hired him yourself. You trained him yourself. You were at his wedding and his daughter's christening and the funeral for his mother 2 years ago when she passed in the night at the care facility on the county road north of town. You know the sound of his voice on the radio. You know the way he takes his coffee. You know that he files his incident reports in alphabetical order and has never been late for a shift. What is coming toward you on Birch Street is wearing his uniform and his hat. It is not Hank. You do what has to be done. It takes 4 seconds. You will not think about those 4 seconds for the rest of the day because the rest of the day does not allow for it. You will think about them later. By 2 p.m., you have 43 people in the Harlow Creek Community Center. 43 out of 2,400. You do the math, and then you stop doing the math because the math is not useful right now. And what is useful right now is the 43. Patty brought food from the diner. She walked 4 blocks through the middle of town carrying 2 boxes of supplies because she decided that was what needed doing, and Patty has always decided what needs doing and then done it. Carl Weaver brought tools from the hardware store. 3 of the highway workers from the diner breakfast, strangers to Harlow Creek, passing through nowhere else to go, have been reinforcing the community center doors with materials Carl brought. The elementary school is secure. Janet Marsh has 27 children and 4 teachers inside a locked concrete building. You have checked on them twice. They are frightened, and they are safe. The radio still reaches nothing outside the town. At 2:23 p.m., it reaches something. A voice. Male. Clipped. Using call signs you do not recognize from the standard law enforcement lexicon, which means military or federal or something that has its own communication protocols separate from the civilian infrastructure that has gone quiet. The voice says, "Any law enforcement or emergency services personnel in the Tri-County area, identify your position and situation. You key your radio. You say, Sheriff Dale Briggs, Harlow Creek, population 2,400. I have 43 civilians secure at the community center, 27 children secure at the elementary school, and 1 town that is not going to wait for someone to come save it." There is a pause. The voice says, "Copy that, Sheriff. Hold your position. Assets are being directed to your area." You say, "Copy. How long?" Another pause. The voice says, "Working on it." It is 4 p.m. in Harlow Creek. You are standing outside the community center. The afternoon light is the specific flat gold of autumn in Iowa, the kind of light that makes everything look like a photograph of itself. You have been on shift for 9 hours and 23 minutes. Your coffee from this morning is somewhere on Route 9, still in the cup holder of your cruiser, long cold. Through the community center door, you can hear Patty organizing the food distribution. You can hear Carl Weaver telling someone how to properly brace a doorframe. You can hear a child crying and then stopping crying because someone is taking care of it. 43 people, 27 children, still breathing. The radio on your hip produces the voice again. Assets 40 minutes out. Your position confirmed. Hold until arrival. 40 minutes. You have held this town for 9 hours on a cup of cold coffee and 19 years of knowing every face in it. You can hold it 40 more minutes. You think about Hank. Not about what happened on Birch Street at 9:14 a.m. About his incident reports filed in alphabetical order. About 11 years of never being late for a shift. About a wedding and a christening and a funeral on the county road north of town. You think about Hank the way you will think about him for the rest of your life. And then you turn back to face Main Street, because that is what Hank would have done, and because there are 40 minutes left, and because this is still your town.